Hello, everybody. This is Ulises Gascon, and I'm going to do a small presentation about the POC, specifically the dashboard that I have been working on for the OpenJS security program standards. So yeah, let me go and show a little bit how this is going to be. So basically a disclaimer. So first of all, this is based on the proof of concept that I built. So I'm supposed that you are kind of familiar with this initiative. If you are not familiar with the initiative, I highly recommend you to just pause this video at any time and just follow up and read the documents that I attach, so it's more easily. I'm going to showcase some of the capabilities because we have been recently a discussion on what we can improve, and we collect a lot of feedback on the project. So the idea now is to showcase how we are going to go next steps, and also to discuss a little bit of the next steps of the project and what is going to happen. So basically right now, what is this all about? All about is this project is part of the security collaboration space. If you are not familiar with this, please click on the links and follow up. So we have a GitHub repository. There is a team inside of the security collaboration space. We work in a lot of initiatives. It has been a really nice journey recently. One of the initiatives is the one that I'm talking today, which is basically to develop a security program standards for the OpenJS project. Mostly Adam is leading this initiative. So for many months, we have been discussing on what are the best things that the project inside of the foundation should follow in terms of security, right? Things like having multi-factor authentication in GitHub, things like having branch protections and stuff like that. So we reviewed a lot of the best practices recommendations for similar initiatives, similar programs in other foundations, in other places, and we came up with our own structure, right? So we're at this point that we are clear on also having the documentation and what is expected and the summaries and so on. So that's super clear. And also we have like a huge checklist that, if you are not familiar with, is this one. So basically we have here like almost probably I think it's like 73 points, which are like the checks that we expect. Some of them are expected, some of them are not expected, depending on the level of your project. So for example, if you are an active project in the foundation, some stuff is expected. If you are a retiring project, maybe not. If you're incubating, maybe yes, maybe not, depends on how you are. So basically here we have the items, and we try also to have like some links to understand why is this relevant, so you can find more information. And actually we include a column on the how-to. So for example, if you want to enable multi-factor authentication, so you hear like the GitHub documentation, so you can just check it out, right? So that's more or less the idea. So the POCs that I worked on are related to improve this experience and to try to make this more digestible for the basically for the teams, for the project that are engaging with this in the pilot program and in the future, right? Right now we have, for example, Express, which I am part of the TC of Express, trying to engage with this. So we have our first initial meeting, and we have some feedback, basically, right? So most of the feedback was around the idea of this requires a lot of manual effort, right? Because if we don't have any automation in place to collect this information, there's going to be like a lot of forms and things to, fulfill. Also, most of the teams are willing to use the same tools that they use every day, right? So if we use GitHub, we expect to still working on issues, PRs, and stuff like that. We also have a huge problem in terms of scales of operations. Like most of the project, when we are thinking on Express, we are thinking on OGS, normally we think on one repository, but actually most of these organizations can have multiple organizations with hundreds of repositories in some cases. So we end up having a huge amount of repositories. Some of the checks that we want to do, for example, branch protection, are based on each repository that organization owns, right? So that's thousands of checks, right? That's the problem of the scale. Also, we have time constraints problem, which is related on the maintainers doesn't want to invest a lot of hours on, sync meetings, stuff like that. They prefer to prioritize the work that they do already on the project, right? So the idea is try to not making a huge overhead. And also there is a huge knowledge gap sometimes. Not all the project maintainers are familiar with these 73 points of checks that we are recommending. So that's also another problem to cover, right? To mitigate this, not only to understand what are the goal of these checks, also how to solve that problem, right? How I solve that problem on the GitHub UI, how I make those rules, etc., and how that might work with my current workflow. So that's more or less the big challenges that they share with us, right? Also, additionally, we have a lot of time to remediation problems because with manual reporting, one of the challenges that we have right now is like we might take a long time until we know if that project has certain things in place or not, right? So that's a problem. Also, inaccuracy of the information, right? A lot of the things are like a snapshot, right? If I have the branch protection rules in one of the repositories, it might happen right now at this moment, but maybe like in 2 hours that can change and I'm not aware of that, right? So that's one of the things that we try to solve. There is a lot of cognitive load as well, because we'll need to be chasing everybody to fulfill the forms and give us access and this kind of thing. So it's going to be like a little bit complicated to get like a full accurate picture of everything in one point in time. And there is a lot of lack of visibility, right? So that's going to be also challenging because this information should follow also to actually developers and other people who depend on the project that the foundation is maintaining, right? So here is the proposal. The proposal, basically the goal is to try to provide tools and automate most of this, right? Computational solution for this, like doing the validations, bring the information. The idea as well is in the next step, try to make mitigation scripts. So for example, if you need to do branch protection on your repositories, maybe we can have a bash script or whatever that can do that for you once you understand that is the goal and that's something that you want to achieve. So we can basically reduce the mitigation and make it faster, right? So we have 2 things. One is a POC for the website. The website basically is collecting this document and is collecting the Excel file that we have with all the proofs and build a modern website where you can actually see this information in detail. You can create PRs, you can increase this information, add more information, and so on, right? And also this will provide canonical URLs, which is going to be essential later on when we have the dashboard, because that way I can link you to, you have this pending task and you can find more information in this link, right? So that's more or less. Then the dashboard, which is like the new thing that I have been working on recently, is basically an aggregator tool. So the idea is we collect information from outside, right? Can be like the GitHub API, can be the OpenSSF Scorecard API, can be human input as well, right? There are a lot of checks that require like human validation. For example, does the team has performed WAS top 10 security training recently? So that's one of the things that we want to check. Also, we want to, have the opportunity to execute workflows, to generate alerts, pending tasks, update the dashboard, these kind of things, right? And we want to have the ability for others to integrate with us as well, right? If we provide some kind of JSON format or an API or something like that, other people can just follow up what we are doing on the dashboard, right? So that's more or less the idea, like making it more extensible. So the website POC, for those who are not aware of, it has been there for a while. So basically, we just bring the original document to this website. So if you click on the image, basically, you can see the website here with all the information. Might not be super updated, so I will update the content, but the idea here is the philosophy of the website, right? So you have an interactive document, you can link to it. You have also like item grouping, so I know, like for example, what checks are expected for me if I am active or retraining or incubating and so on. And also I can see the details from this as well, right? So we are going to improve the wording, obviously, and we're not going to have this item 0, 18, 11, whatever. That was the original approach, but we're going to have it like more Slook name based. But yeah, that's the idea. You can see here all the details, like how I should do this implementation, where I can find more information about it, how many time it's going to take for me to do this task, what is the level of access required, because some tasks, for example, require a GitHub admin level, so not everybody can do that. So that way also we can help maintainers to understand and organize the work a little bit better around these security standards, right? In terms of demo time, I will do the demo next Monday, hopefully in the next meeting. And here is the new piece, the POC for the dashboard. So the dashboard that I have been working on recently has the ideas that we shared just before, right? So the idea is we have some information to collect manually. We have some information to collect from external sources that can change over the time, right? Like for example, the GitHub API to understand how are the shape of the organization, the repos and so on, right? So we try to bring this information to a database, and based on that database, we can do computational results, right? So we can do an analysis and check like, does this repository has branch protection, true or false, and so on, right? Also, we can do like more deep analysis execution. That's something happened, for example, with the OpenSSF Scorecard, that if you are not signed up for the OpenSSF Scorecard and you don't include the workflows on your repositories, you might not get the last information available. So basically, we can just clone the repositories, do that execution, extract information, using custom flags for us, and so on. So basically, we can also scan for secrets in the repositories and go much more complex and more deeper, right? Basically, we are going to use process child, and we are going to, run containers and stuff like that if we need deeper information for certain areas that we are interested on. And the most important piece from this is going to be the extract of the information, which is going to give us the intelligence and the understanding of what's going on, basically. So we have the alerts, we have the task, and we have the dashboards, right? Basically, that's basically the idea. So we have like how everything's going, that's the dashboard, different levels of visualization. Then we have the task, what I should do as a maintainer, or what's pending from me, categorized hopefully by level of hardness. I mean, how difficult is to do that task and how important is this for the scoring. And also we'll have some alerts, right? I want to be alerted if, for example, somehow I disable the second factor authentication in GitHub, right? These kind of things I want to have really alerts. That's the idea. So in terms of how we are going to pull in data, we have the option to pull for multiple resources, can be APIs, can be whatever that is available outside. We have independent workflows. So the idea is that pulling data from one source doesn't actually require to pull your data from other sources, right? So you can do that independently. That gives us the flexibility to do pulling in many different ways, right? We can do some cron jobs that are daily. We can do other things that are running every hour. We can do depending how we want. We can do an advanced analysis, and that's what I told you before. Like we can use child process and stuff like that to run other tools that we can have in the environment and clone the repositories and do some evaluations as well. So that's something important for us. We can do some AI integration if needed to improve the alerts, reporting, and so on, running, for example, Olama locally and stuff like that. You here have some examples of how we populate repos lists, for example. This is one of the things that we do right now. This is, you give me the name of the organization that you want to track and the URL, and from this I just collect all the information from the repositories available, right? So this kind of scanning, enriching information, you can just generate reports the same way. Check health, which is running all the checks that we have available. That's more or less the idea of this information, right? By the way, here you have the links to the real source code, and it's working, so you can just experiment with the POC. We don't have an external database at this moment. All is self-contained. Basically, we are using JSON files. In order to avoid a massive mess, we are using strict JSON schemas. So basically, even if you do a manual modification of the files, you are going to, when you create the PR, you are going to be evaluated. So if the integrity doesn't match, you are going to get an alert. So even if you use the CLI, even if you use manual automation, even if you use a script or whatever to make changes on the files, if you break that, we will notice immediately, right? All of this information will be accessible for now on GitHub, right, as a repository, so anyone can access from the API. So that's the first step for us sharing information outside. And also we have a version control, right? So for example, for this manual information, just back to the example of the Did Express team has done the OWASP top 10 training recently, so we can have this JSON modification added as a PR. We can have discussions, make documentation, relate that to issues, and so on. So that's super easy for us to track, right? So we have the history of the project together with the information. So that will help us. You can find more information here on how we store the information. So for example, here we have the alerts. So it's just a JSON file with all the alerts that we have for Express project in this case, right? We have the checks. This is what we have been performing and how is the shape of the project in general. You can see here the project as well, like all the information from the project, which includes the repositories, the URLs, and so on. All this information is public, by the way. You have the task as well, what is needed to be done by that team, right? So this is how we store and move the information around. Then we have the CLI integration. So if you are not familiar with the project, right, one of the best way to do this is using a CLI. This CLI has two options. You can use interactively, so you don't have to remember all the flags, like minus name, stuff like that. You can just use, and you will have like a real nice interface. Or you can use flags, and that way you can use this in a CLI, GitHub workflows, stuff like that, right? So depend 100% on how you want to work on this. We have checkpoints, which is the most relevant things, right? We try to combine this Excel that we discussed about, right, before. So for example, we want to have some kind of computational way of understanding if the team has done the security training or the WASP top training, or if we have the GitHub organization multi-factor enable, these kind of things, right? So in order to do that, we will do that based on checks. So every check works independently, has their own test as well. So we can test those checks independent of the data. These checks will generate some JSON exports that are related to alert, task, and so on. And we can use this information later on to build more complex artifacts, right? So even if we are building a dashboard with a specific visualization for us at this point, we can rearrange those checks to do specific campaigns. For example, let's say that we are very focused on having multi-factor authentication, so we can just include those or 3 checks in one specific workflow, and we can just run that and having an isolated dashboard for, you know, a first milestone, this kind of thing. So it's going to be like very versatile because all the checks work independently, right? So we can move really way. If you want to have an analogy of how this will work, this is going to be very similar of the way of the OpenSSF scorecard works in terms of having running this information with the checks they do, right? So it's going to be very similar. You can add more checks, remove those checks, and generate your own dashboard and your own metrics and points based on this, right? So yeah, this basically is a checkpoint. We have like multiple checkpoints. This is like a checkpoint that has passed, right? For example, in this case, we confirm that percentage of the repositories from Express in this case, which by the way is simulated data, but you have here, you can get like how many of those projects doesn't have the sign of web-based commits and stuff like that. You can see multiple examples here on how this work, from checking manual information or not. So for example, check npm multi-factor enable is a manual information that we collect because it's not available on the API. So here we just get the information from the project, the checks and the task and the alerts, and we just go through all of this and we just generate the information, right? So we include the pending task if there are any. If we fail on this, we include the alerts and so on. So that's basically how it works. And every check is independently is modifying and adding information to the checks, tasks, alerts, and so on. So basically that's why it's so modular. You can just keep adding things and modifying things. The most important things, I guess, from this dashboard is what we all have been waiting for is the reporting, right? So reporting right now is done based on templates. Those templates can be customized to any shape. I'm using AJS, but you can use any other format. So we can generate from that Markdown, JSONs, HTML-based, CSVs, whatever you're interested on, right? So it's highly customizable. We just collect information from the data that we have, and we just make it something visible from that. So that's very dependent on how you want to do that dashboard. So I created a few dashboards, one for the foundation level with high level detail, other for the project level detail, and also alerts for a specific project, pending task for a specific project, and so on, right? So this is very flexible, while maybe this is quite limited right now. So this is a dashboard, which is just basically a Markdown document, right? Just to make it simple, I've been working on this proof of concept for the last 2 days. So mine not super safe, but just to give you an idea. So here you have, for example, how many checks we have implemented from the long list of checks that we go ahead. So we have like 6% of the checks that we want. How many project has been scanned. So right now it's like one project with 94 GitHub repositories in 3 different organizations. And from here, you can see like what we have achieved as a foundation. Did we achieve the web commit sign off for all the projects? So right now, no. We have achieved the OWASP training, the secure software design training, multi-factor authentication, whatever is needed here, right? So that's how this information works. By the way, the multi-factor enable for NPM is a weird example because we actually have that, but we just simulate that we confirm that information at the beginning of the year. So we have a rule on the check that says something like if this confirmation date has been for more than 6 months, and then consider it outdated, so just add a warning, right? So this is the kind of intelligence and information that we want to have around this information. As well, if you are not familiar with this web commit sign off is about, you can click to more information. That's why it's important, these canonical URLs, and you arrive to the website where we explain these kind of informations, right? This item 62 will be replaced for the proper title, but just to give you an idea of how this works, right? As well, this can give us a customized dashboard for the project. So this is like the Express dashboard, so has the same information, but regarding to Express, right? So here we are talking about the amount of project that doesn't have this or the other, whatever. Also, you have the option to see alerts. So this is like what is important for me right now to know. So in this case, for example, it's like, yeah, lack of training and what is expecting from me to do. So it's like, yeah, at least one of the maintainers has taken to be defined training on OWASP top 10 or equivalent, right? Multi-factor authentication for MPN has been disabled or requires confirmation, right? That's one of the things that we have been discussing before. Like maybe you have enabled, but you didn't confirm again, like after 6 months or whatever, that you still have that setting, gives a manual thing. This is the kind of things that we showcase here. You have also, as I said before, the alerts. And one of the most fancy things probably is that you have this task based on the same idea. So here you have like a check boxes for whatever you want to do, organize if they are critical or low. So for example, having the sign off for web commits is recommended, but not a mandatory, right? So the ones that are mandatory can be critical. We can define this on the check, like how criticality is this for us. So as a maintainer, you can just focus on the most critical things, and then you can go to the high level and so on. So it's easier to digest, right? That's more or less the idea for that demo. I will go like a full demo on Monday, but just want to give you an idea. What are the next step of this? So basically, right now, and this is why it's important, if you're watching this video, to provide feedback. I want to know what do you think about this idea, if this works, if has been an improvement, especially if you have been participating in the previous feedback session. We want to make and add more checks. Some of the checks are going to be actually very complicated to compute, so we will see how that works. I started to discuss with other people to get more data sources. So for example, I'm thinking on chaos metrics, and we can start to understand boost factors and things like that actually are related on some of the checks. So we can get some community metrics as well integrated here. We can have some automations. We can use all of these using GitHub Actions. That's why we have the CLI. We can build more custom dashboards and see actually if these dashboards make any sense to the ones who are watching this information. And we can start to work on the first mitigation scripts to see if we can actually reduce the time to mitigation by a lot. And also we want to make an alert management system that can be not just telling you alerts. Also, you can just dismiss some of these alerts. Like, for example, let's say like you are aware of this, the need for doing the OWASP top 10 course, whatever, training, but you are not going to do that until the beginning of the next year, for example. That's the agreement. So basically we can mute that alert until the next year, stuff like that, right? So let's make the alerts more useful, right? At the end, the idea is not just to have a jump, a sea of alerts or whatever, just going there and annoying you. Just we want to make alerts that are useful and make sense to you. As well, this alert system can be used using GitHub issues, pinning specific maintainers and stuff like that, right? So all of this is for a discussion going. Thank you so much for watching this video. Probably was talking too fast. The idea was to make it this easy and to have a better discussion on Monday. I hope you like this video. It's a small presentation. I'm really willing to get your feedback. Thank you so much for your time. See you hopefully Monday.